So let us start with today's lesson. So what are the learning objectives of today's part? We should know that what are carbohydrates. We should know about the type of carbohydrates, and we should stress on the main functions of carbohydrates. So let us start with what are carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates, as we all know, they are the chemicals which are formed mainly by carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. With hydrogen and oxygen, there is a ratio of 2 is to 1. Okay, so hydrogen and oxygen will always be in a ratio of 2 is to 1. So if hydrogen is 2 units, oxygen will be 1 unit. And the basic unit of carbohydrates is called monosaccharides. Okay, the basic unit of carbohydrate is monosaccharide, and it is carbohydrates are always oxidized in the cells which help us to release energy. We all know that the carbohydrates help us to release energy, and it is always called the cheapest source of energy. Okay, whatever work we are doing or whatever energy we are getting it from carbohydrates. If we are not taking carbohydrates, enough of carbohydrates, what will happen? We will fall sick. We will not get the energy to work. Rather, 60 to 80% of our total energy contained in our diet is supplied by carbohydrates. And I have already told that it is the cheapest source of energy. Fats are also sources of energy, but they are the richest source of energy. Now, let us move on to the next slide, and let us now concentrate on the types of carbohydrates. Now, here I have put a chart. So, let us look at this chart in this flow diagram and discuss. Now, carbohydrates, it can be divided into sugars, starch, and we can say that cellulose. Okay, first we will concentrate on this sugars. Okay, so sugars, let us concentrate on this sugars first. Now, sugar is a type of carbohydrates which are generally of two types. One is simple sugar and one is compound sugar. So, what is the simple sugar? The simple sugar is the monosaccharide. Whereas, what is the complex sugar? That is the disaccharide. Okay, is it clear? Now, sugars divided into two parts, monosaccharides and disaccharides. Now, monosaccharides are simple sugars. These are actually the smallest unit of carbohydrate, and which cannot be hydrolyzed or broken down into any smaller part. Is it clear? Now, glucose and sucrose, they are mainly monosaccharides. Now, glucose, fructose, galactose, these are examples of monosaccharides. Whereas compound or disaccharides, we can say that this comes under disaccharide. Okay. Now, sucrose is a common sugar which is usually utilized in homes, and it is commercially produced. We can say that it is produced or obtained from sugarcane or sugar beet also. Now, it is a combination of what? It is a combination of glucose and fructose. Is it clear? So, glucose, fructose, and galactose. We have mentioned here only glucose. So, glucose, fructose, and galactose. These are all simple sugars or monosaccharides. Okay, and here sucrose, which is a combination of what? It is a combination of glucose and fructose. So these two combine together to form sucrose. Now, what is the chemical formula of glucose? We have told it that their hydrogen and oxygen is in a ratio of 2 is to 1 in carbohydrates. So remember, this formula of glucose is, we should remember that is C6H12O6. So hydrogen and oxygen are in a ratio of 2 is to 1. So you all are studying chemistry now, you know the ratio and proportion. So you know that here hydrogen is twice that of oxygen. So the ratio is 2 is to 1. Now C6H12O6 is the chemical formula of glucose. Now where is it present? We find glucose in everything like honey, sweet fruits, and it is very much readily digested. As it is a monosaccharide, as it is a simple thing, it is easily digested and it is transported to blood. and to various cells of the body. Now, we have seen that several patients are given this glucose solution as a drip. We will tell that saline is being given so that he or she should not be dehydrated, or when they are losing much amount of water from their body. So drip is given. So that is only a glucose solution. That too in a proportional amount. We are having a ratio and proportion of several quantity of glucose and water that should be maintained. Now, glucose is oxidized also during cellular respiration. When you will study respiration and cellular respiration, there also you will study this glucose, importance of glucose. Now, fructose we all know is present in honey, ripe fruits as glucose. Now, it is also called a fruit sugar. Fructose, remember that it is also called a fruit sugar. Now let us come to sucrose or the compound sugars. What are they? They are formed of two molecules of simple sugars. Now here we can say that two molecules of simple sugar, that is glucose and fructose, they combine together to form sucrose. Whereas maltose is also there, which is made up of two glucose molecules. So if we take maltose here, it is maltose, it is formed of two glucose molecules. So two glucose molecules combine to form this maltose. Again lactose, which is made up of glucose and galactose. Lactose, if we take this disaccharide here, so lactose is another disaccharide. It is formed of glucose and galactose. Is it clear? It is formed of glucose plus galactose. So what is happening? We have seen that all these compound sugars or all these disaccharides are combined, two molecules of each simple sugars combined together to form disaccharides. Di means two. So sucrose combines glucose and fructose, maltose combines two molecules of glucose, and lactose combines glucose and galactose. So I think this part is clear to everyone. Now here we should see what is happening to glucose. Glucose is converted to glycogen, which is stored in livers and muscles and which is utilized during emergency. Now when a person is starving, when a person is on if he or she is not taking any carbohydrates, so where from he will get the energy? So liver and muscles will be storing this as glycogen to use it in emergency. Now fats, we will discuss about it later when we are studying about fats. No need to discuss it here. Now comes this oxidized, we have told that some cellular respiration, glucose is oxidized in cellular respiration also. So where a lot of energy is produced. So one molecule of glucose releases 686 kilocalorie of energy. Here during cellular respiration, 1 mole of glucose releases 686 kilocalorie of energy. So this part should be clear. Okay, if there is any doubt in this part, please do ask me. Now we will move on to the next part, that is the starch, or which is called the polysaccharide. So what is a polysaccharide? It is a complex carbohydrate. It is a polymer of glucose and its chemical formula is, we should know the chemical formula also, as we are in 9th standard, we are studying chemistry, we should know the chemical formula. So the chemical formula of this one is C6H10O5. Okay, we will put it in a bracket and write N outside. So why this is? Because it is the number of glucose molecules in it. So we are writing N outside. So how many glucose molecules are there in it? So C6H10O5, and this N should be written outside. Now it is this is actually polysaccharides or starch. They are storage form of carbohydrates in plants. So when we take a potato, when we take something from the plant's roots or seeds or grains, we will say that it contains starch. So starch is a storage form of carbohydrates mainly in plants. In our body, sugars or carbohydrates are stored in the form of glycogen. So they are stored in livers and muscles. So make it very much clear that starch is stored in plants, and starch is always an insoluble product in water. And starch is broken down, it is broken down during digestion, it is broken down to glucose, and on the other hand it can be broken down to glycogen also, and which can be stored in livers or muscles in different types of animals. Is it clear? So we are consuming starch, that is, we are consuming grains, cereals, wheat, barley, maize, etc. So we are consuming everything. So starch is broken down in our body with the help of several types of enzymes which help to break down starch. Okay, then they are converted to glucose, and from that they are converted to glycogen, and they are stored in livers and muscles. So that this is the complex process how these polysaccharides are being broken down. Now next we will come to cellulose, which is also an insoluble polysaccharide. But this is made up of many molecules of simple sugar, and it can never be digested in human body because we are not having any digestive enzymes which can break down cellulose. All these are being broken down by several enzymes. When you are studying biochemistry in higher classes, you will be studying how these are being broken down. So glycolysis and all, we will be studying different biochemical processes which are happening every time in our body. But cellulose cannot be broken down in our body as we do not have any digestive enzyme in our body. And what it is doing? Cellulose is mainly found in the cell walls of plants, in the seed coats, in fruits, in vegetables, and as well as in cereals. So cellulose contains a large proportion of dietary fibers. So dietary fibers, it contains a large proportion of dietary fibers, and it is useful as a roughage in our body. So fiber acts as a roughage and it helps us to make our system clear. So to make our system clear, it is very much important that we should consume roughage, and that roughage is that cellulose part which is we are taking from plants, seed coats, vegetables, seeds, etc., which is not able to we are not able to digest that part because enzymes are not present in our body. So I think this is a bit complex part, and I think it should be clear to each and everyone. So students, if you are not clear in this part, please go through your textbook, whichever textbook you are following. If you are not understanding there also, ask me and write in the comment box whichever part you are not understanding. I'll go through it again and I'll teach you again. So let us move on to the next part. Now this is what we have discussed in the previous slide: carbohydrates, monosaccharide, disaccharide and polysaccharide. Now monosaccharide I have told you glucose, fructose and galactose. And disaccharide I have told you sucrose, maltose and lactose. Sucrose, maltose and lactose. So sucrose is a combination of glucose and fructose. Maltose is a combination of two molecules of glucose, and lactose is a combination of glucose and galactose. Okay, glucose and galactose. I think it is clear. It was just a revision. So these are the types of sugar. And polysaccharide, I have told you that starch is a polysaccharide which is broken down to glycogen, and cellulose which is acting as a fiber in our body. Now let us move on to the functions of carbohydrates. Now, what are the main functions of carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are always a source of energy for the central nervous system. Now, if we are deprived of glucose, or if we are deprived of carbohydrates in our diet, what will happen? Our brain will stop functioning properly. So, we should provide adequate food to our brain, that is glucose. Now cellulose, I have told you just now, as we are not having any digestive enzyme which can break down cellulose. So cellulose provides bulk to the food and it facilitates the elimination of waste products. Now what is excess carbohydrates being done? When they are converted into glycogen, they serve as the reserve source of energy. So what does this reserve source of energy mean? That means that whenever we are in need of energy in our emergency situation, when we are not consuming carbohydrates or when we are fasting for several days, This will act as a reservoir of energy. Glycogen will break down to give you glucose. And now we will come to the next part, that is carbohydrates are economical and a quick source of energy. I have told you earlier that it is the cheapest source of energy. Now next comes that the ribose and the deoxyribose sugars are important components of nucleic acid, DNA and RNA. When we will be studying this DNA and RNA, we will go to it in detailing. Now you just remember that the ribose, this is the ribose sugar and this is the deoxyribose sugars, which are important components of nucleic acids. Is it clear to everyone? I think this part, which I made it a little bit shorter, is clear to you all. Now if you are having any doubts, please do comment in my comment box, and don't forget to share and like my video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you will get each and every updates whenever I am posting. Okay, thank you.